So, if we have feminism, should we have a similar movement from men? And if the answer is yes, then what should menism, for want of a better phrase, be fighting for? Dr. Warren Farrell is the author of The Myth of Male Power. Warren, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, I suppose for a lot of people listening to us, they would think that most countries are run by men, most businesses are run by men. Certainly in the Western world, in general, men earn more than women do. In the less developed parts of the world, men's position is virtually unassailable. So what is there to complain about?
There's not a complaint per se, but we've had a chance to have gender roles in which both sexes can be more fluid in their roles. In the old days, the controlling force was survival, and women played the role of raising children, men played the role of raising money. Many men are very suited to raising money, many women are very suited to raising children, but many men are more suited to raising children, and many women are more suited to raising money. And it's important for us to, as we parent our next generation, to parent them with not assuming that because they're female or male, they'll play a certain role. Now, the women's movement has done a great job in expanding women's options. So when a woman and a man become pregnant today in a middle-class family and they're married, the woman usually generates three options. I want to work full-time, I want to be with the children full-time, I want to do some combination of both. But her husband often generates three sort of different options. Option one, I want to work full-time. Option two, I will work full-time. Option three, I must work full-time. And so that is not liberation. Liberation is not climbing to the top, learning the way to climb to the top of a ladder where you feel you are obligated to earn money that the family spends while you die sooner, without regard for who you are as a human being and what your preferences are. So we've done a great job in helping open up our daughters' choices. I have two daughters. I'm happy about that. But we have done a terrible job because we assume that earning money is power, as opposed to saying the earning money is oftentimes about an obligation that you take on when you have children. So many men have talents as artists or as writers or as thinkers or as fathers, but we don't even give them that option to be that, because we only value them to a large degree, to the degree to which they are able to climb that ladder of success. And if they don't earn as much or more money as a woman that they meet in life, oftentimes the woman says, well, I don't want to have children and then support a man as well, without regard to the fact that that man might be a wonderful father who would be playing a role that would allow her to be free to be involved with the workplace to a greater degree, should she wish to be.
If you like, would it be fair to say it's a sort of a sexual typecasting that we still perform, particularly towards men?
A sexual typecasting and an assumption that earning more money is about power. In fact, the road to high pay is a toll road. A man who drives a cab in 60, 70 hours a week, his goal in life, his love of life, he didn't grow up dreaming that he would drive a cab, dreaming that he would work in a coal mine, dreaming that he would be working 70 hours a week and be away from his family in one way or the other. When we ask men, when the Pew Research Center last year asked hundreds of full-time working men who were also dads if they had a choice of working full-time or being with their children full-time or doing some combination of both, what would you prefer to do? 49% of the fathers who were full-time working said they would prefer to be full-time with the children, not part-time with the children, but full-time with the children if they didn't feel obligated to earn money for their family. And so this type of discussion, this type of asking the question of men is not even it's not even in the social consciousness in any industrialized country, except to a lesser degree Scandinavian countries.
There still presumably is huge societal pressure on a man at work is not going to say to another man, I wish I was at home minding the kids, because that's just
exactly, yes, precisely. And if he did have that type of guts, he would be, when the next promotion came, there would be discussion about, well, we shouldn't really promote Sean because, after all, I think he's really more devoted to his kids than he is to his work, and so he would undermine his ability to get a promotion at work without a discussion frequently with him as to how, if you did get more involved with your children, how do you plan to juggle that? How do you plan to manage that? So, for example, if your wife is working full-time, it's possible that you wouldn't be able to, and you have young children, and if you're the one that's going to be home full-time with the children, well, then maybe we do need to get a more flexible type of job for you and not promote you. But on the other hand, we should discuss this with you as a man in the same way we would discuss this with a woman.
By the same token, do you think that fatherhood is not as valued by societies?
Yes, I do think that fatherhood is not as valued by society. So, for example, if you and I went back to our high school reunion or a college reunion, and we had been voted most likely to succeed, and then we told the people at the high school or college reunion that we were a full-time dad, and people said to us, "Well, what are you doing, work-wise?" And we both said, I'm a full-time dad, and then the scuttlebutt would get around, the reunion that we were not, in fact, the one who succeeded the most. The question would not be asked, what type of dad are you? What type of quality of parenting do you have? Are you able to do boundary enforcement? Are you able to do roughhousing? Are you able to do nurturing? Are you able to do connecting? Now, these are things that, the things that I just mentioned offhand, boundary enforcement, roughhousing, these are playing games. These are gifts that fathers tend to bring to raising children, and we don't even know, the average person doesn't know the degree to which roughhousing contributes to a child's ability to set boundaries for himself, to be empathetic to the person that they're roughhousing with, to be assertive but not aggressive. That we don't know the degree to which risk-taking produces a brain that operates more flexibly, that neurons connect more effectively when we take risks. And IQ increases. The average person doesn't even know these facts. The average father doesn't say, I want to be equally involved with raising the children because children who have a lot of father contact combined with a lot of mother contact do a lot better in more than 30 areas of development, social areas, psychological areas, physical health areas, in every single academic subject. Fathers don't explain this to moms, and women can't hear what moms don't say, and the culture isn't aware of it, so the social support that we get at things like reunions or even in neighborhoods or among family members is not nearly as great. And so there's a need. In the old days, it was understandable that we had rigid roles. Rigid roles were most effective in creating the opportunity to survive for a country. But today we can afford to have more flexible roles where both male and female cannot be have their role in life dictated by their gender. We can be more soulmates rather than role mates.
This kind of societal change, it'd be an attitudinal change and a societal change and a political change. Is it the sort of thing that men and women should pursue together? If you like, feminism has been attempting to change all that from on the female side of the equation, and then perhaps is it a time to extend feminism to take in everybody?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, Betty Friedan years ago wrote a book called Stage 2, which really suggested exactly that. And it should be feminist leaders. I was on the board of directors of the National Organization for Women in New York City for 3 years, and I was arguably, perhaps the leading male feminist in the world for many years. And I am very supportive still of the constant expansion of women's options in the world. But I also see that if a woman is doing well financially and she doesn't have the attitude that she can, that a man who is not as prone toward earning but is prone toward being nurturing, that this man is potentially eligible for her love. If she doesn't have that attitude, then she loses something, he loses something, and the society and the children growing up lose something. And so, I feel that in the past we had this we need basically gender liberation. We don't need feminism criticizing men and saying that men own the world, and that we live in a patriarchal system in which men made rules to benefit men at the expense of women. If men made rules to benefit men at the expense of women, we would make rules that said that women were the only ones that were supposed to go to war and be killed. That women would be sexual at the age of 13 as often as we wanted them to be. We would make rules that were totally, that where women bought us the diamonds, that women paid for dinner for us. And so it's unfortunately feminism. The good news about feminism is that it has done a great job expanding options for women. The bad news is that it has painted men as the enemy and as the oppressor, and it has undervalued the family and demonized men. And that portion of feminism has got to be corrected. Feminists should be the single biggest pioneers helping men's roles be more expanded and changing, not just.
Is that all feminism, Warren, or just, if you like, an extreme expression of it, that it's demonized men?
Yes, it's the expression of it that gets manifested in universities all over the world. That is, if you're a fair-minded person listening to what I'm saying and basically agreeing with it, and you walk into a gender studies class at a top university, pretty much anywhere in the world, you would hear an attitude that what I'm going to say right now is what would be agreed with by, and people would say, and that would be that we've lived in a patriarchal world in which men have made the rules to benefit men at the expense of women. And there would be no teacher in that university who would disagree with that. And
but if that were not true, then there would have been no need for feminism. But clearly, women felt there was a need for feminism because it seemed the world was structured to favor men more than women.
Yes, correct. The need for feminism was that women's roles were restricted. And the reason women's roles were restricted was for the same reason that men's roles were restricted. That men were. It was because before birth control, and when survival was so crucial, and people could have 10 children, women bore those children. It was assumed that women would be the ones that would need to stay home and raise those children, so men would have to be out raising money. And so a man who might have had as his fantasy, I want to be an artist, or I want to be a Vincent van Gogh, or a musician, or a painter, or a thinker. If these men were not gay, that is, if they were straight men and they were wanting to have children, they soon had to, quote, grow out of those little fantasies. Because they were going to need to be responsible for supporting themselves, their wives, and 10 or 11 children. And if they weren't born into a family of money, they didn't have the option to do that.
Warren, thank you very much for speaking with us today. That's Dr. Warren Farrell, author of The Myth of Male Power. Warren, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.